What if we've misunderstood what depression actually feels
Episode
like?
1.
Because we imagine
The
sadness, don't
concept
we?
of depression.
Crying, staying in bed, not being able to cope. What about the person who gets up every morning, goes to work, makes everyone laugh, and comes home, eats dinner, does it all again tomorrow? Ask them what's wrong. They'll probably say nothing. Maybe that's exactly the problem. Nothing's wrong. Nothing is particularly right either. Remember when little things used to do something to you? To hear a song and play it 20 times. Someone you liked would message you, and your whole day changed. As a kid, you'd be going somewhere on Saturday and start getting excited on Wednesday. Where does that go? Because there comes a point for some people where life hasn't necessarily become terrible. Just stop tasting of anything. Still laugh, but it disappears quickly. Still make plans that when the day comes, you'd rather stay at home. You buy something you wanted for months, and 2 days later, it's just another thing you own. And that's when people start telling you what you need. Holiday, hobby, exercise, maybe a relationship. Maybe you need to get off your phone. Perhaps they're right about some of it. There's a question underneath all of that nobody seems to ask. What if I know what I should be doing? Just can't remember why I should care. That's different. Because now we're not talking about laziness. We're not even really talking about sadness. Talking about something much stranger. Human being can apparently continue doing almost everything required to stay alive, yet slowly losing their interests. If that's possible, how many people do we walk past every day who aren't falling apart at all? They're functioning perfectly. They've just forgotten what they're functioning for. Have you ever met someone who seemed completely fine, discovered later they weren't? That's frightening when you think about it. Because we like to believe we'd notice. We imagine depression as a face. But what face? The quiet person sitting alone. What about the loud one? The one telling the jokes? The one checking everyone else is okay? The one at work who never calls in sick? Maybe they're not hiding anything deliberately. Maybe they simply become very good being themselves in public. Then they get home. Door closes, shoes off. Something changes. No audience anymore. No reason to smile. No conversation to keep going. Sit down. Suddenly, 2 hours have disappeared. Not because they were having fun. They weren't doing anything. That's the part we don't see. We see someone's behaviour when we're around them. We don't see what it cost them afterwards. Perhaps that's why we sometimes say, but they seem so happy. Did they? Or did they just seem happy when we were there? There's a difference. We've become very good at judging people's lives from tiny pieces of evidence. Photograph, joke, good job, relationship, nice house. What have they got to be depressed about? That's a strange question. Because if depression required a terrible life, successful people will be immune to it. They're not. Maybe That's what makes this so difficult to understand. You can love your family and still feel empty. You can know you're fortunate and still struggle to get through Tuesdays. You can laugh and mean it, still not be okay. Human beings are complicated enough to hold two opposite things at the same time. So perhaps the question isn't, do they look depressed? Perhaps it's, how much of another person's life do we actually see? I wonder if depression sometimes arises slowly. You don't actually notice it arriving. Nothing dramatic happens. You just start saying no a little more often. Fancy coming out tonight? No, not tonight. Want to come round? Maybe next week. Stop calling people. Not because you don't like them. Just don't have the energy to explain yourself. Then something strange happens. People stop asking. Part of you is relieved, but another part of you is hurt that they stopped. Does that make any sense? You wanted to be left alone. Now you're upset because you're alone. Maybe that's the cruel intelligence of depression. It can make you push away the very things you miss. It doesn't happen overnight. Don't wake up one morning and announce, right, from today, I'm going to disappear from my own life. Just stop doing little things. The music isn't playing in the kitchen anymore. The trainers haven't moved in weeks. You haven't called our friend. You don't cook properly, because what's the point? Even the clothes you wear change. Whatever's easiest. Whatever requires the least thought. Eventually, the smaller version of your life starts to feel normal. That's the dangerous part. Human beings can get used to almost anything, even being unhappy. So let me ask you something. Forget whether you're happy. It's the bigger question. Think about the person you were 5 years ago. What did that person do that you don't do anymore? What did they enjoy? Who did they speak to? And what made them curious? What made them laugh when nobody else was watching? Because maybe depression isn't always about being someone else. Maybe sometimes it's looking in the mirror one day and realizing you haven't seen yourself in a very long time. Why is it that when we're struggling, the smallest things suddenly become enormous? Take a shower, that's it, 10 minutes. You've done it thousands of times. So why are you sitting there negotiating with yourself about it? There's a cup in the kitchen. You could pick it up and wash it. It takes 30 seconds. You'll do it later. And tomorrow, there are 3 cups. There's a message on your phone from someone you actually like, and you read it. You even think of answering, but you don't reply. Now it becomes a day, and a day becomes a week. And now replying feels awkward. So you avoid it completely. From the outside, none of this makes sense. That's the frustrating part. Nobody needs to explain to you how to take a shower. You haven't forgotten how to wash a cup. You know that fresh air might help. You know staying in bed all day probably won't. You know ignoring everyone isn't making anything better. You know all of this. Yet knowing something and having the energy to act on it are apparently not the same thing. That's difficult for people to understand, because we measure effort by the size of a task. A marathon looks difficult. Getting dressed doesn't. But what if effort doesn't work like that? What if, on some days, getting dressed costs someone, running 5 kilometers costs something else? We don't see that cost. We only see the thing they didn't do. And eventually they see it too. The dishes, the messages, the washing, the unopened letters. Each tiny thing becomes another piece of evidence against them. So look at you. You can't even manage this. And now, you're not only exhausted, you're ashamed of being exhausted. Maybe that's why telling someone, just get on with it, can miss the point completely. The question was never, how difficult is the task? The question is, how heavy does life feel to the person trying to actually do it? So there's something I can't quite get my head around. The human beings spent thousands of years trying to make life easier, and we did it. If you're cold, turn the heating up. If you're hungry, food can arrive at the door. Bored, you've got more entertainment in your pockets than kings hundreds of years ago could ever have imagined. Lonely, well, that's interesting, because technically we sold that too. You can speak to almost anyone, anywhere, instantly. So why can a person have hundreds of contacts and nobody they want to call? How did that happen? Maybe connection and contact aren't the same thing. Spend an evening watching other people's lives and somehow come away feeling worse about your own. Someone's in Thailand, someone's bought a house, someone's getting married, someone's transformed the body. You're sitting on the toilet at 11 o'clock at night, watching all of it happen. That's a very strange way for a human being to live. I don't think technology is the villain. That's too easy. Technology is extraordinary. So is medicine and comfort. I'd rather have a warm house than prove my character by freezing in one. So perhaps the problem isn't that we have too much. Maybe it's that we've confused having more with needing less. Because we still need what humans have always needed, to belong somewhere, to be useful to somebody, to have someone to notice when we don't turn up, to touch another human being, to have something tomorrow that actually matters. You can't order those things the next day for delivery. Maybe that's worth thinking about when we talk about depression. Because sometimes we ask, what's wrong with you? Perhaps another question deserves to come first. What's missing? The frightening thing is, you can have almost everything and still not know the answer. So how do you end a series about depression? I could tell you everything gets better, but I don't know that. Nobody does. I could tell you to exercise, to eat better, talk to someone, get outside and sleep properly. It's all good advice. But imagine saying that to somebody who spent 20 minutes this morning trying to convince themselves to get out of bed. Sometimes advice arrives before understanding. Perhaps that's what we've got wrong. Keep asking depressed people to explain why they're depressed, What happened? What have we got to be unhappy about? Maybe nothing happened. Maybe everything happened. Maybe they don't know. Do we really need an explanation before we're allowed to believe somebody's struggling? Don't think hope always looks like suddenly loving life again either. Maybe it's much smaller than that. You showered today. You answered one message. You walked to the shop. You laughed at something stupid. For 3 seconds, you forgot you're supposed to feel terrible. 3 seconds. Sounds like nothing, doesn't it? Unless you haven't felt anything for months or years. Then 3 seconds is evidence. It's not evidence that you're cured. It's evidence that you're still there. Perhaps that's why we make another mistake. We think recovery means becoming the person we were before. What if you don't? What if that person isn't coming back? Maybe somebody different comes out of this. Someone who notices things they used to walk past. Someone who understands another person's silence. And someone who knows that I'm fine can mean absolutely anything. Don't want to finish this by telling you life is beautiful, because sometimes it isn't. Sometimes life is hard. But you're here, listening to this, thinking about this. Somewhere inside you, however quiet, something is still responding.
Subscribe to my
So
channel.
maybe the question isn't, when will I feel like myself again? Maybe it's, who could I become from here?